Welcome to the Scalability Code, the podcast that helps you get out of the shit show and start growing your business. A few times each month, you'll hear stories and commentary from visionary entrepreneurs, EOS implementers, and fractional COOs about how they've taken businesses to level 10. And now for your host, Matt Haney.
All right, here we are again today, another episode of the Scalability Code. Thanks for joining us today. I'm joined by Adam Kaplan. Adam comes to us from outside of Detroit, Motor City, and Adam's going to give us some of his background. Yeah, there it is. Give us some of his background on how he got to EOS, what he does, how it happens, what he loves, maybe what he hates, and some of the other things about working with small business owners. So, Adam, thank you so much for joining us today on the Scalability Code.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So as we do, I think an introduction goes a long way. I think we as business owners and facilitators and executives are trained to give a really quick 30 to 45 second introduction. But I'm going to challenge logic today because I want you, Adam, to take some time and go back to a couple different things. One, think about your first exposure to entrepreneurship and give us some backstory there. And generally, for entrepreneurs, that's at an early age. And then I want you to fill some gaps in between now and then. So tell us how it started and take your time, give us some steps, and let us know how you ended up as an entrepreneur.
Anyone listening to this ever collect baseball cards?
Oh, don't tell my kid. He's so into it right now. So into it.
So I never had a Mickey Mantle. Let's just put that out there.
All
or
right.
a Ty Cobb.
Okay.
But that was my jam at 8, 9, 10 years old.
You're kidding.
You know, no.
That's so great. And you know, it took a big lapse, and now there's a huge resurgence again.
Yeah, that's what I heard. You know, I'm not one of those weird old guys hanging out at card shows with 10-year-old boys.
That's a good thing to know. It's a good
thing to know. But, you know, when I was that 8-year-old boy, like I couldn't get enough of that. And we had a lot of fun. My buddy and I, mostly successfully buying, not so much successfully selling. So you ask what the lessons are. Selling is everything, the selling function. If you can't sell, can't have your business.
That's right. And most collectors don't, I don't say most collectors, dumb statement. A lot of collectors don't want to sell. They just want to sit on them. And the market goes full circle. And so more importantly, who did you grow up following? Were you a Tigers fan?
So I grew up in New York, so I'm actually a long-suffering Mets fan. Actually.
Okay, fine. We're good. We're good. As long as you weren't going to tell me you were a long-suffering Yankees fan, because I do happen to represent these guys rather well. I couldn't have made that up. It was sitting here. But as long as you're a Mets fan, we're good, because there's no harm there.
I love you guys, because you made 1986 possible.
Oh, no.
Sorry, man.
You're not wrong. That
Sorry,
was a bad
man.
deal. That was a bad deal.
Sorry.
So wait, so you got into baseball cards. Did you get a good collection? I mean, do you have some stuff?
I had a good collection. Maybe I have a good collection. Like, it's not something I look at all the time.
Yeah.
I've got some good cards, you know, but nothing to retire off of.
Wait, is there any? I'm so many questions. I'm sorry, and then I'll let it go. Do you have a plan for the cards? Do you have family? Do you have kids? Do you have friends? Anybody that would want your collection?
Not really. I need a succession plan for my
You
cards.
need to go. There's a new program. Shout out to my friend Ed Kane, who co-started a company called Card Vault. You need to look up Card Vault. They partnered with Tom Brady. You've heard of him. And they've started a series of retail stores around the country called Card Vault because they, like you, saw the way that cards were back in the day and the retail stores of the past, which have then faded away. And now, Adam, there's this whole resurgence around going to stores, going to retail, ripping packs, as they say. So cards are back. You ought to dig back in, and you ought to just say, let's be a little curious and see where my cards are worth and where they are.
Well, I would say just one other thing, and I know we're really belaboring this, but
yes.
You say ripping packs, like we used to count cards. Like we used to say, all right, if this card is here, what comes before it? And maybe we should buy this pack. And sometimes we were right and sometimes we were wrong. Like, that's like counting cards in Vegas.
Counting cards. Well, listen, I love that. I won't spend too much more time on it, but I do think that, it's cool to hear. I had a collection too. I wasn't diligent and I certainly didn't keep up with them, but I love living it through the eyes of my kids and his friends now. So, okay, so that was our first exposure to entrepreneurship. great life lessons. Tell me, how'd you get, like, give me some more about how you got to where you are.
First job was entrepreneurial. It wasn't my company, but I partnered with an entrepreneur. And, like you, that kind of gravitates towards integrator. I had some, he threw me to the wolves with some integrator type opportunities, including building a website for him that was in the late 90s.
Wow, way before
Back in the
websites were
day,
cool. Yeah.
and I remember the day when people said, "Hey, the internet's going to be big one day," right?
Sure it will. Sure it will.
So that was fun. And then I was building a company, 2001, internet bubble burst, poof, gone, because those were my clients. So that was maybe my entrepreneurial low point. But depending on how you look at that, I learned a ton from that,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You could be riding high and then riding low literally in an instant. I think people experienced that during COVID. Maybe some people who've been bitten by the tariffs this year,
Oh,
some
yeah.
people listening. I hit the high 10 years later when the company I was running, we sold it to big PE firm, Morgan Stanley, 10 times EBITDA. That felt
There you
good.
go.
But honestly, at that time, I realized that I was kind of making up like my system. I didn't really have one. I was
What space was that company in?
dental.
Ah, okay. Like products
Yeah.
or actual services, delivering
Services.
cleaning. There you go.
Yeah. Unique
Did you
service
guys build
delivery.
that up to a multi-office unit kind of thing, or what?
Yeah. It wasn't office. It was a different service delivery model. We went to the patient instead of them coming to us.
Very cool.
So we were pretty ahead of our time with that.
And you were the operator? Was it your company, or were you the one making the operators or making the visionary successful?
I was the integrator of that company.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Awesome. And how long were you there? Like, what was that story like?
That was a couple of years, doubling the offices, scaling up, and a lot of growing pains, and ultimately, a nice exit for everybody.
Were you able to get in early enough where you were working with the founders, or were you already sort of one layer down based on when you joined?
With the founders, they had taken already some VC money, but that was like a smaller round, and then that was a bigger round. But then I wanted to do something myself, so I started a recruiting company, and in 2014, Klein introduced me to EOS. Klein, that's in the Traction book. And, he said there's a system to run your business better. And I was pretty skeptical. And I kind of sat with it for a while. And then ultimately I ended up implementing it, doubling my business in 3 years. I saw it work for me. It worked for my client. So it wasn't a one-trick pony. And then I picked up some other clients.
Did you self-implement then, or were you
I
working with
self-implemented at that
Love
point.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And then picked up some other clients in my recruiting company that were running on EOS, and I saw their success. So bought in. And then in 2021, I became an EOS implementer after taking EOS to another company where we doubled our customers in a year during COVID. So I lived it. I experienced it. I saw what it can do. And now I'm coaching others and making them better using EOS.
That's awesome. That's very cool. So think back between baseball cards and between the dental business, any other influential visionaries or entrepreneurs that you met in your developing years as a kid or before college or in high school, or, my dad's buddy or so-and-so, someone that you thought, man, they're a visionary, or they got a really, how did they come up with that?
I love that question. That's a great question. I'm going to have to reflect on that a little bit because my dad was kind of the man who went to work 9 to 5 and wasn't an entrepreneur. He was an engineer. So, I had growing up a number of friends whose parents, who primarily fathers, were entrepreneurs.
Same here.
So there was a guy who started with one shoe store, and then he added 2 more shoe stores, and he was in New York. So he made some money there, and then he diversified into real estate. And then, pre-Uber, he bought a taxi medallion because those were like Bitcoin today. I mean, those
Absolutely.
prices like went nuts. So he held that and sold it. And, I used to talk to him about business, and he used to say, everything sounds good. We live in a nice house. I've definitely made money, but I've also lost money. He's the one who, I think he was the one who mentioned to me, like, you make money on the buy, right? And that's always been my mantra for any real estate investments I've gotten into or stocks, right? That's obviously, it's a cautionary tale right now with stocks
Yeah,
at,
no kidding.
multi-year highs, right? What are we buying? Where are we buying? So, but I think a lot of visionary entrepreneurs have some of these instincts, but sometimes I think, they can get carried away. And now we can like maybe transition a little bit into EOS tools, if I may, right? On your vision, what's your core focus, right? What's your main business? I know that visionaries can't help themselves and they like to invest in other things. But let's try and really dig in, like, where's the value that we want to create?
That's awesome. That's interesting. So I too, like you, was exposed to entrepreneurship at an early age via my friends' families and fathers and others that I was watching. My dad was a banker. My mom was a school teacher. I always had the bug, and I had the lawn mowing business and had the stuff. And I too, as an integrator, aligned myself with visionary business owners. And there's one common theme throughout the last 20, 25 years of my career is that I was always working next to somebody who had a struggle or a challenge to translate their vision. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was the guy that translated. I was the translator that helped get this guy or gal in a room, talk through what the details were, and then help take that back to the people so that we had a true plan. And the plan could change, but we had to give someone something in writing that said, this is the direction we're going, and this is where we're going, and this is why. And so to your point earlier on distilling vision down and making sure that we're being incredibly clear. If you ask the average employee at any company in the country run by a single entrepreneur, I would bet all the baseball cards that I own that half of those people or less would say, I know the vision of this business. I bet even 10% of the people that work for single visionary entrepreneurs could say with conviction what the vision of the business is. And I don't know if you see that at all as you're entering in or talking to people about EOS.
It's a small percentage. Don't know what the number is. And that's, I think because primarily a lot of us are so caught in the weeds, stuck in the weeds of the day-to-day business.
Yeah, working in the business and not on it at times.
Right. And we might not even be clear. I think visionaries have some general sense, right?
Yes.
Of where they're going. That's what makes them visionaries. But I'm not sure that they see all the dots, as you said.
Yeah.
That's why they need integrators to help them with that. And furthermore, I don't know that a lot of visionaries see that as something they should be doing.
Right.
Communicating
Why is this
that
important?
to their people.
Just go do the job, work. Why do you need to know what the long-term vision is? And you and I obviously know that, but I think the main reason, not the main reason, but one of the reasons that I think sharing that vision is just to get alignment so that people know what they're showing up for. And that could be a myriad of things. Some of them have bigger purpose. Some of them have, give backs and community, and some of it's just capitalistic nature. And, but that's for the employee to decide. It's our job as integrators and visionaries and coaches to make the vision clear. That way people know what they're joining and what they're signing up for. Okay, let me ask you a question. This is always one of my favorite questions to ask implementers. Is there any common themes, common businesses, common trends, common industries that you find yourself working in? Because as we know, EOS and Traction, the framework, does apply to every single business. But do you find yourself gravitating towards a certain type of business?
Well, it's not by design necessarily, but my professional career has been primarily with service companies, and it just so happens that I end up mostly with service businesses.
Professional services, B2B?
Some B2B, some B2C, so distribution, logistics, medical services. I've got education services.
Well, it's no surprise that all of those companies, as I look back through our roster for the last 8 years of doing this, we tend to fall in that space as well. B2B services, both professional and blue collar. And I find myself that the visionaries and entrepreneurs that are starting those businesses tend to be those that win by what I call blunt force trauma. They are out there just banging that business every day, bang, 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 because that's what they know, right? And that's what they've done, and that's what made them successful. But adding a little bit of accountability and a little bit of structure tends to see that pendulum. I see it swing really hard, really quick when they add a little bit of structure to their services business.
And I would add that a lot of these visionary entrepreneurs are chief cook and bottle washers in a lot of instances. So rainmakers, but also many of them really involved in the day-to-day and the
Right.
processes and not loving that part of their work, wanting to elevate, just not knowing how.
You are listening to the Scalability Code. I'm your host, Matt Haney, founder of Sinclair Ventures, and we help visionary entrepreneurs like you get out of the shit show and focus on growing your business. We offer fractional COO and leadership coaching services that free up that brain of yours to focus on what's next. Learn more about us at sinclairventures.com. Now back to it. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, that's very, very well said. Let's see, what else? Most of your clients, I think we talked about this. Well, let me ask this question. Do most of your visionaries also sit in the integrator seat, or do most of your clients have both the visionary and integrator and they're different people?
Most of my clients, it's different people, but there definitely are some that sit in both seats.
Yep. And in your experience, is there a more impactful result with an integrator in the seat versus just the visionary sitting in both?
Yes.
Yes, I led you to that question. You're giving me great one-word answers. How do you approach it with a visionary where they've got the wrong integrator in that seat? Integrator by default is what I say.
Okay. At the end of the day, it's their business, right?
Sure.
So, typically, first of all, it's more common that they're going to be sitting in both seats than they're going to be carrying a bad integrator. Or what I should say is an integrator that isn't the right puzzle piece, that isn't the right fit for them, because bad is a relative term.
Sure.
Right? Bad for them, but not necessarily bad in the world. Could be a great integrator for someone else.
So that sounds like a right, RPRS issue, right? Where you've got the right person for someone else, not the right person for our seat.
Right. And that's an evolving situation because as the business changes, the needs for the seat might very well change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I use this term a lot, which is, promoted by default or by tenure. We put them in that seat because they were the office manager and they naturally moved up because they were organized, right? They were very good at managing the office or doing smaller kind of management things. But as the business has grown and the revenues have grown and the org and accountability chart has grown, we have this person who has been there a while, but is probably most times not the right person to be running the true operations of the business.
Well, and here's what I see. I see that there's a trusted relationship between a visionary and an integrator, but a visionary, I had this with a client, dental company, 5 offices, pretty sizable practice. Integrator was very much trusted, but didn't really have the strategic chops, the gravitas and really was towards the tail end of their career and didn't really want to change, put into place some of the changes that the business needed. So the visionary really struggled with that for a period of time.
Right.
And, we try and shine a light on that. Ultimately, it's always the visionary's company and, they're going to make the call. Again, the integrator makes the day-to-day decisions, but the integrator works on the privilege of the visionary.
No,
And
I agree with that. And I think that if there's one or a couple things I have issue with around EOS, one of them is that the integrator gets this ability to make all these decisions and break all these ties. And as you said earlier, I'm a service provider. You're a service provider. At the end of the day, we're providing a service just like employees do for any employer. And we can do our absolute best to bring the proverbial horse to water and hope that they drink. And the best visionaries that I've worked with or that I've been associated with do genuinely care what their employees feel and how they perceive them. But at the end of the day, it is their business and their decisions.
100%. 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, couple other things. What do you think the one hardest thing or the hardest thing in your mind when it comes to managing people? What do you think is the hardest element towards managing a human in a business sense?
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned RPRS, right people, right seat. So it's really managing to that.
Yeah.
Right.
So accountability.
Right. Accountability is really what it boils down to. And, many people on this call probably know aspects of this, or maybe they'll know it well. Right person managing to the core values, making sure someone truly is a core values fit and that the core values are right is kind of the assumption, and that they're a fit. And then that they GWC the role. And I think,
Break that apart. I know what GWC is, but I always
yeah,
like to hear everyone's term.
yeah. So get it as a God-given talent. You're either good at it or you're not. I'll go to the C now. That's the education and experience. But then the W in the middle, the bullseye, that's waking up every day with a fire in your belly to do it. I think we as leaders have a good sense about the W. And I think we underestimate how important that is. And we should lean more into that.
Into the want it piece, the
Into the
W.
wanted piece. Yeah. If
Yeah.
we have someone who doesn't want it, I've never seen a W change from a no to a yes, ever.
Yeah, I agree. I struggle a lot with the capacity piece. And I think you summed it up by saying education and experience is the C.
Yeah.
Because what's really interesting in my scenario earlier, where you have an office manager moved into the integrator role, they may get it. They may sure as hell want it, but they don't have the experience and the education to do the role. And that's a really hard thing to look at when you've got someone who wants it, really want it, right? They really do. And they just don't have the capacity. And I find that is the right person for the organization. They're just in the wrong seat. And most visionaries I come across will find a seat for that person because they want it and they get it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a race at that point, right? It's like, how quickly can this person learn it to meet the visionary's needs? And it can happen and people can elevate themselves, but it just depends on the visionary, what he or she needs. And it's definitely not a slam dunk, but it can happen. I've seen it happen.
Sure. As well as I have too. So let's go into tools for a couple minutes. Tell me your, and you might be thinking about your last session or your next upcoming session, right? You probably finished one at some point. I know you have one coming up. You're having conversations with that leadership team as preparing for this session. What are the next tool you're going to talk about, or the last one you talked about that, give you the reason why you're going to bring that tool up during the session?
After every session, I take notes, anticipating what they might need in the next session based on the results from the prior one.
Mm-hmm.
I did an annual last week, a 2-day annual. And like I always do, we talk about 5 dysfunctions of a team and Patrick Lencioni and team health.
Sure.
So that was super strong. They're pretty strong on scorecard and cash. The next tool I'm slated to teach them is in the schedule is cash. So I'll be ready to teach them the 5
cash drivers,
the 8 cash flow drivers.
8 cash flow drivers,
however many there are, right?
Sure.
But we may show up that day and they may need something different from me and from EOS. So we'll give them what they need.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, there's many times I've gone into a session and thought, hey, talking to the implementer, hey, we really need to focus on this and this. And then someone drops a bombshell during something and they're like, time out. We actually need to pivot to something else. We actually just did the 8 cash flow drivers in one of the last quarterlies I had with another implementer down here in Texas. And it was fascinating. I hadn't been through it in a while, or maybe didn't remember it with the last time, but it was really, really impactful to go through the cash flow drivers because it's very easy, I think, for me to just see that as not an issue. If you're not having cash flow issues, it's not an issue.
Yeah.
But it's only till it's an issue that you're like, oh shit, if I would have just done this 6 months ago, we wouldn't be here. But now you're forced to scramble. So I think that's a really interesting one that you brought up. And do you find it harder to sometimes bring those correlations to each different industry? I mean, or each different team? I mean, mapping the cash flow drivers for each unique business must be a little bit of a challenge at times.
Yeah, they're different. I mean, we try not to be consultants and try to have our teams come up with that. The level of financial acumen varies among my teams. So sometimes we need to work harder than others, but most of the time they can pull some good ones out. Yeah.
How hard is it for you to sit through sessions and not give answers?
It can be hard. It can be hard. Now, I will say that I share expertise if I've had it. Like, if I have a team that's done something with EOS that I think could benefit this team, I will share it. But I'm never going to tell them, you need to do this. I just kind of add to what I like to call the pool of shared meaning, right? You're discussing an issue, you're on the D of IDS, you're discussing it. If I have something I could put into that pool of information, I will do that.
Yeah. No, that's great. And that, of all things, I think in the sessions that I've been in as a fractional integrator, sitting next to the visionary, being led through a session with an EOS implementer, I've been relieved at times when the answer is not given. I've also been frustrated when I look in the eyes of that implementer and I go, first of all, I know you outside of this session room, and I know you know the answer. And we're kind of like swimming through the muck. Sometimes you just want the answer, but your point is valid. The teams need to come to the table with the acumen or interest to solve. And sometimes when they're not there, you got to nudge them a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know, Jim, and I'm not there. It's not a torture chamber, right? Like we're there to help them along and
Right.
ultimately get to what they need, or give them some to-dos to go out and find it.
Yep. Anything unique in your sessions that you bring or that you like to think you do differently, or bring that secret sauce, the Adam Kaplan magic that people always say, hey, it was really great that you did X, Y, or Z, or I really like the way you do.
Well, I love leading IDS. I mean, I love pushing my teams to get to the solve faster and better, and to figure out what's holding them back, write some of those issues up on the board if they're stuck. What are a couple of options? And just really try and help them and push them through, compartmentalize well, push it down to the ops team. Like, is this something we really need to spend our time on? Do we have the most knowledge in this room, or is the most knowledge in ops? Then why are we doing it?
That's right.
Let them do it.
That's right. Well, let me ask you a question, because you use the term IDS, and I think it's for those of you who are not familiar. IDS is a identify, define, and solve problems. So I want to ask you a question, Adam, because I think discuss, define, however you want to look at it. How do you suggest companies running on EOS list out what the issue is that we're trying to solve? Do you have a format? Do you have a specific way that you say every time we do this? Or
Yeah, I don't have it every time. I mean, we say like 3 to 5 words. So I try to model it literally. If it's an issue with, hey, we need to hire more salespeople, I'll just write hire sales. Or if ops isn't getting the product out the door, I just put on product shipping, right? We don't have to have all the description and all the details. If it's truly an issue, the person whose issue it is going to be able to tee it up. And if they can't, then let's dig in. I mean, maybe that's not the real issue. That's not the root. Maybe it's a symptom. The main thing is put it up there in a couple of words, know who owns it, and then go from there. Keep practicing.
Right. And then a question I get asked all the time as a fractional integrator is, because they look at me as the local EOS resident in the room, which I tend to be, when we don't completely solve an issue because we've assigned to-dos that need to be done to then solve the issue, does that issue get removed from the IDS, or does it get left in the IDS section for to-dos to come back so that we can solve?
I mean, technically it should go away. And then the to-do, once we finish the to-do, if that issue comes back or whenever it comes back, we just put it back up there. Otherwise, we're just kind of carrying all these issues and it becomes just kind of a laundry list of just stuff that we've talked about and stuff that we've done instead of the most important problems, obstacles, opportunities that we have in the business.
Yeah, I think it's a good rule of thumb to do that. I've found that, and I have a little, maybe it's not pure, but I have a rule that's, we're not going to have the same issue 3 weeks in a row. We're just not going to do it. Now, if it's a big, hairy one, then maybe we need to take it back or move it to long-term issues and come up with it our quarterly, but we're not going to see the same issue for every week. And if Adam needs to go solve something, then let's go solve something. And I think that's the beauty of having a fractional integrator in the room, is that they can say to you, hey, Adam, I saw that was there last week. You needed 3 things to get done. Did you get those 3 things done? Because we're going to have an L10 coming up in 4 business days. And I don't want you to have egg on your face. I want you to get this moving forward, and I don't want to see this issue again. So I use it, maybe it's not pure, I use it as another form of accountability that says, we do have to-dos associated. We got to get those done. And it's still an issue on the issues list with your name next to it.
Mm-hmm. If it works for you and works for your teams, keep doing it.
I love your flexibility. I do get some people that are like, no, that's not what the book says. It's like, I know the book says that, but we need to do what's best for everyone involved. And sometimes, scratching an issue off and I guess technically maybe you come back and do a headline or do something that says, hey, we got resolution on it, just FYI. But I do find that people want that closure. They want that closure in the leadership team meeting to know that issue was removed and resolved. So, well, one more question. Tell me what you do outside of work, other than collect baseball cards, which you're going to get back into.
Yeah, so I'm a big family guy, so love spending time with my family, man of faith.
Love it.
Proud Jew.
There you go. Love that.
Very involved in the community. I'm actually currently the president of my synagogue.
Very
Probably
cool.
The craziest job I ever took. Hardest job I ever took.
100%. You can't fire any of those people. Well, maybe you could fire some of them, but you can't fire the people that put you there.
No, I can't.
That's awesome.
So that's an awesome learning experience. Yeah, I like to work out, travel, read.
All right, last place I'll let you go after this. Last place you've traveled and the next place you're going.
Okay. So my last big trip, last place I traveled was Montana, which was great. First time in Montana, Wyoming, very beautiful, highly recommend. You'll never see a bluer sky. There's fun in the sun for everybody all season long.
So great.
Every season. But biggest trip was Japan, once in a lifetime, or at least a bucket list item. Hope to go back. A real wonderful place. And next big family trip is to Israel, actually, for my dad's 90th birthday. Please God, he should be well, and then we're going to give him his dream trip.
That's amazing. Yeah. When are you going?
In December.
Okay, wonderful. And where are you going?
We're going to be all over.
Are you going to
mostly
Tel
in the
Aviv?
central, mostly in the central area.
You're going to go to the Negev?
Probably not the Negev.
The Negev. Yeah. We did a star watching night at the Negev. You talk about the bluest skies in the Montana and Wyoming. The darkest, most gorgeous place was in the crater in the bottom of the Negev with my family laid out on these cushions, and we're staring up at this jet black sky, and we had a stargazing guy come in with a green light, and he was telling us all about the constellations, and we're in the beautiful, like there wasn't a noise, there wasn't a light. It was very magical. I'll never forget it.
Beautiful. That sounds wonderful.
Well, enjoy Tel Aviv, and the Carmel Market food tour in Tel Aviv is what I recommend. Go tour the market. Your dad can take a place, and you guys can bring him different food, and it's so special. So anyway, Adam, thank you so much for joining me today on the Scalability Code. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, and we look forward to potentially having you back in the future.
Thanks, Matt. It was fun. Appreciate your having me.
Awesome. Well, take care, sir.
You too.
Thank you for listening to the Scalability Code. If you made it this far, please follow the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get out of the show together. We'll see you next time on the Scalability Code.